Hello there. I'm glad you could join us. Tonight, our Birding with Lois show is experimental, and we're just going to see how it goes. We're going to go with the flow. So, I'm going to start by asking Glen to put up that first bird slide and let me show it to you. All right, so here we've got some birds, and I'm here. TJ Asher is here. He's going to be another describer. And Doug Herr is going to be our expert bird person. So, Doug, what do you want to tell me about these birds here?
Well, this is a bird we see in the wintertime here in the Central Valley. These are American goldfinches. They have much brighter plumage in the summer during the breeding season, but you can always easily distinguish them from the similar lesser goldfinch by the amount of black and white on the wings and on the undertail coverts. I think the lesser goldfinch has the white undertail covers, if I'm not mistaken. And there's a lesser goldfinch, both male and female, male on the left, female on the right.
And do these also change color summer to winter?
They do. The male will lose some of that black cap and become more similar to the female.
Okay. All right. So let's introduce everybody. So this is Doug Herr. And he's been a guest on my show before, and I'm so glad you could join me tonight. And then this is, if I can get the right thing, this is TJ Asher. And he has been crew on this show as well as guest. Hello, TJ.
How you doing?
Doing really well. I'm having a
It's
good time.
interesting to see the goldfinch in such a dreary color because when I see them here in Minnesota, they're always super bright, vibrant yellow. So it
Right.
was interesting to see. It's like, wow, that looks kind of dull and boring.
Well, isn't that because of breeding plumage? Don't we have a breeding non-breeding thing going on there, Doug?
We do. In Minnesota, you're seeing them in the summer during the breeding season, aren't you?
Yeah, so I see them.
Okay.
They hang out in my backyard and eat the seeds off the echinacea flowers and whatnot.
I've also seen them in breeding plumage in on the north coast in California, but not here in the Central Valley.
And these are the lesser goldfish. Do they even happen in Minnesota or not?
I don't know that they do.
Yeah, it
Uh,
doesn't look familiar to me at all. I guess I didn't even realize there were more than one goldfinch.
Well, we've gone on to a new bird now, and
this is this is actually in the same genus as the goldfinches,
mhm.
and it's the pine siskin. This is
So
also
so are these in both our area and his area?
um, I'm not sure about Minnesota. I suspect they are. Um, I've seen them in the Rocky Mountains, in the Sierra Nevada. We only see them here in the Central Valley in the winter, and I've not seen them yet this season.
Hmm. Are they here every winter, or is it just sometimes they're here and sometimes they aren't?
It seems to be more sporadic than some of the other ones. Some years there is called a good year for them, which means we see a lot of them. Other years they're kind of sparse.
Okay. So let's go to something is weird with my computer. Hold on. Ah, there we go. Let's go to the next bird picture, if we could, please, Glenn. All right, now here we get to the regular place. What I'm going to do is I am going to describe everything I see and try and be as observant as I can, as if I didn't know what this bird was and I was trying to figure it out. So it's a bird. It's sitting on a branch. I can't tell the size because I don't have anything to relate it to in the picture. It's got a pink bill, or sort of a peachy pink kind of a color. The head is definitely black. The eyes are definitely black. And the eyes you can barely see in the head because they're so black. And that black has a definite line. It doesn't fade into anything else. It's just like Like somebody took this bird and they dipped it upside down into black ink. The rest of the bird is, from this angle, is brownish with little bits here and there. And it looks like the belly might be white. I can see that on the edge just a bit. And oh, and the legs are pink and gray. So, Doug, what would I look for? What is the diagnostic things?
Well, this particular species has several different color forms. And this one is the one that we ordinarily see on the West Coast, formerly called the Oregon junco. And that black head is very distinctive on the adult birds. But on the immature birds, it doesn't have the black head. And in some of the other plumages, the black is more similar to the rest of the bird. It's not a distinct color. The one thing that separates this bird from others is the edges of the tail. You can see a little bit of white at the edge of the tail. This is the female to Oregon junco. The species is actually called dark-eyed junco because there's another junco in the Southwest called, I think it's a yellow-eyed junco. Not certain of that. Anyway, the dark-eyed junco has many different color forms. What we're seeing right now is the female Oregon form of the dark-eyed junco. All these dark-eyed juncos have that dark eye and white outer tail feathers. Even in the immature plumage where there's hardly anything else to distinguish the bird.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see what else we can do. So unfortunately, on the next slide, I put more than one picture. So I'm going to ask for Glen to put that slide up. And then TJ, if you would describe what it is that you see and what you might want to look for if you were trying to ID this bird and didn't know what it was.
Well, I am seeing the coloration, number one, sort of a creamy, sort of a light tan almost. The wings look like they have spots on the outside of the wings. Has a very kind of a narrow, small bill with kind of a bluish tint to it. The feet and the legs are definitely a bright pinkish to red color. Doesn't look to be a very large bird just by the branch. It looks like it's kind of sitting on a twig. And the tail is somewhat moderate length, I guess. And then on the one, the tips of the wings have like stripes on them almost, where it's like a dark brown and then a little white stripe and then a dark brown and a white stripe. And then there's a little thing underneath the right on the cheek, kind of. I'm not sure what, sort of a darker patch underneath the cheek.
Very good observance. And Doug, anything that we should look for on this bird?
Although that tail length that TJ was mentioning, sorry, that is TJ, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. The tail length is something that you should look for. It's a good diagnostic mark for this bird. The posture is something that is very typical of this bird. It's a dove, and the dove with a long tail like that, and the spots on the upper wing coverts, and very few other markings on the head or chest makes this a mourning dove.
And I see that it has blue around the eye. I probably wouldn't see that in real life, but I see it in the photograph. Is that always that blue around the eye?
I don't know that it is, and I'm pretty sure that there are other dove species that also have that blue there. So that by
And
itself would not help.
you said something about spots on a covert. What's the
Yeah,
covert?
those are the upper contour feathers of the wing. They cover the base of the flight feathers. You can see them in the lower left picture. Those spots, where you're seeing mostly of the wing is the upper wing coverts and the primary feathers. The primary feathers are the ones that TJ was describing as having the white stripes with a black background.
Mm-hmm. And the white stripes are just because the edges of the feather are uh, are white and it's folded up that way, right?
Yes.
Okay. I happen to know that uh, the tail on this thing is, when you see it fly, it is almost pointed, but it's hard to tell when you see it all folded up like this.
That's correct. It also has some white outer tail feathers,
Okay.
which you can see in the upper left picture.
Okay. Glenn, could you show us the next slide? I want to do a comparison, so let me get out of the way here. And I think, TJ, are you up for trying to describe this thing?
Sure.
It looks similar, doesn't
It
it?
looks very similar. The one of the two looks slightly lighter,
Mhm.
and has a band around the back of the neck, a very dark band. The bill is a similar dark with a little bit of a bluish tint to it. The feet are a little more red, more, I guess, crimson, or maybe a maroon color in comparison to the prior bird. But based on what I can see, that's really, one is kind of hidden there. And then the underside of the tail I can see is white, or a very light color.
Okay. So one of the problems with doing this from photographs is that the lighting of the photograph can change things. So those feet look darker in this photograph, but I'm not sure that they are darker. Doug, are they about the same color as the mourning dove?
I believe they are. It's not something I have really paid much attention to. There are other things on this bird that TJ did mention that are important tools for identifying the bird. He did mention it looks similar to the other one. The posture is the same. The bill shape is the same. This is also a dove. And that dark band around the back of the neck uh, tells me this is a Eurasian collared dove, which is not native to North America, but has spread quite widely.
Okay. And if Glenn would show us the next picture, let me get that spotlighted. And that is a comparison of the two, the mourning dove on the left, the Euro dove on the right. Oh, Euro dove is not the official word. It's just what local birders call it. But it looks like the tail is different. And I know that the Eurasian collared dove has a more squared off tail than the mourning dove.
Yes.
I have, it seems to me that the coloration between the two in real life is somewhat different. It's hard to tell in pictures, but which is more gray and which is more beige?
I would say the Eurasian collared dove is more gray and the mourning dove is more beige.
Okay, all right. How are we doing? Are we having a good time yet? I hope we're having a good time. I
We're
certainly
talking
hope.
about birds.
Yes, what can go wrong when you talk about birds? I know we could sing about birds. Let's do
That could
that.
go wrong. That could
That
go
would go
wrong.
very, very wrong.
No, Glenn, show us the next picture with that singing bird. There we go. And I managed to take away all the names on this, and so I'm going to try and describe it to you. Um, It's obviously got yellow on the front, and I see some black stripes going down the head with a white stripe through the eye, and then all this brown stuff on the back. And all right, Glenn, show me the next picture, please. This is what it looks like from the front, and it's that brilliant yellow and that black V. How could you ever not recognize this bird? Show me the next picture, Glenn. This is it from the back. It's all brown. All you can tell is stripes on the head. It's such a confusing bird. But if you can go back to that singing picture, Glen, yeah, that's the pose that I know it from. So, Doug, tell us what we've got here.
Singing is what they do. This is the western meadowlark, and that yellow breast with the black V is a very clear identifying mark if you're in the western part of the continent.
Mhm.
Now, there's also an eastern meadowlark, which looks very similar to this. And in fact, when the early explorers first encountered the western meadowlark, they did not recognize the differences between it and the eastern meadowlark. And so for a while, it was neglected. Thus, its scientific name of Sternella neglecta.
Are you kidding? Neglecta. Well, I got to tell you, I moved from Michigan to California. In Michigan, I would walk the mile to school and through the fields, and I would hear the eastern meadowlark singing away, and I'd sing right back, and we'd talk to each other on the way over. Came to California, they don't understand my song. They
Right.
have a totally different song. And if you sing the eastern meadowlark, the western meadowlark will not talk to you. It's so strange. Okay. So we've done all these smallish birds. How about if we switch over and do a big one now? All right, I'm going to see if I can get that. There we go. So this bird is very, 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 very tall. I mean, you can't see the size from it, but I've seen it as I'm driving down the road, and it is maybe not quite as tall as I am, but it's tall. So let's see. I think it's my turn to describe it. It has a yellow bill and the yellow part around the eyes. That's called the lore, I think, or the lores. And it's got white feathers, very fluffy white feathers, and black legs, and it's standing in water with a reflection. Okay. So this is what I see. Let's look at the next picture and get a little more information. Oops, how did that one sneak in there? Yeah, go to the next picture. There we go. I left the catcher in it, huh? We know it's a great egret now.
I
Okay.
knew that anyway.
Yeah.
And it has an incredibly long neck too.
Yeah. And so that first picture that we had, it was all folded up. And so it didn't look that long. But in this picture, it's really long and it doesn't have any of that fluffy stuff. So Doug, what's going on with this bird? What's the fluffy stuff? Why has it got a long neck? All that stuff.
Well, the fluffy stuff is the breeding plumes, and you're not going to see that all year. It's primarily a spring, summer kind of thing. And it's what these birds were killed for in the earliest part of the previous century to decorate hats.
Mm.
So, of course, that is no longer being done, so their populations have recovered. Um, this bird is almost as big as the great blue heron, and they are in the same genus. There are some superficially similar birds on the
Well,
West Coast.
we'll get to those in just a second here.
Okay.
Are you done talking about the great egret? I
No,
just
I can keep
okay.
going. Um, now we often associate them with water, and we do often see them wading in water to catch fish or crustaceans. But they'll go to land too and catch mice and really anything they can swallow.
And I want to bring everyone's attention to the pattern of the bill, the legs, and the feet. And he has one foot raised, so you can see it's light, dark, dark. This is an important thing to remember. Glenn, if we could have that next picture, please. Now here is another bird, and this one has a dark bill, dark legs, and yellow feet. It has a few more bits of yellow on it. There's yellow around the eyes, and there's sometimes a yellow-green stripe down the back. But this bird is much smaller than the other bird. And if we could see the next picture, I think we can see, yes, there are its yellow feet. You can see really well as it lands. So, all right. So, Doug, what do you want to tell us about this? And by the way, I do have a couple of comparison pictures for these two birds coming up, and I've got another one later.
Well, the yellow feet is really good for identifying this bird. Um, there are some similar birds in other parts of the world, but in North America, the yellow feet means a snowy egret. And it also has that black bill combined with the black legs. But you do have to be careful because sometimes the yellow is obscured by mud. And also younger birds, the yellow is not quite as distinct.
If we can go back one slide, I would love to ask you about the bird that's perched in the tree, and it has stripes on its leg. What's up with that?
That is probably winter plumage or winter coloration. Um, we see that more often on the West Coast than in Florida, I believe.
Mhm.
Uh,
Okay, let's see a comparison of those two. I think I have that as the next slide. No, actually, this is snowy egret. Now, here again, we have the fluffy stuff and the smooth stuff. Is that something special?
that is the same thing that's going on with the great egret. The fluffy stuff is the breeding plumage.
Mm-hmm. And how long does that hang out there?
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
I mean, is it there all winter? We don't know.
Um,
Okay,
I don't know. No,
let's do the next one. I took a picture of two birds side by side. Isn't that cool?
that is very nice.
And that's the size differential between the great egret and the snowy egret. All right, so let's look at the next bird. Now, this bird is different. It's got a yellow bill, dark legs, and dark feet versus the snowy, which was dark light. So, cattle egret, tell us about that one.
Well, this is also a non-native bird. It has spread over quite a bit of North America. They're also in Hawaii, where they look a little bit different. The legs are more of a yellow color or greenish color. But you can also see on the lower right picture, there's a bit of tan on the bird's head.
Mm-hmm. And the
And
next
that,
one shows that better. There we go.
and you can also see the profile of the head. There's feathers farther down the bill on the lower side than on the upper.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good way to identify this bird. Because the coloration, if it doesn't have that breeding plumage, the tan breeding plumage, the coloration is very similar to the great egret, but it is the size of the snowy egret, and it has that distinctive profile on the head.
It doesn't it also have a much smaller bill compared to the size of the head, or is that just my eyes?
I think you're correct. I think you're right about that.
I think we have one in breeding plumage coming up here. Yeah, a little bit of that rusty on the top of the head.
And in some areas of the world, the rusty goes down the back as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's look at the next picture. And here we have all three of them flying. I thought this would be a good comparison.
So the great egret is in the upper picture. You can see the long yellow bill, the dark legs and feet. The snowy egret, picture is kind of small on my screen.
Mm-hmm. It's on the
That's
lower
the
left, and it
lower
has,
left.
yeah, the feet aren't
dark
as yellow as usual, but they're still golden.
and that dark bill is very
Mm-hmm.
clear here on this picture.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cattle egret has the dark legs and feet, the yellow bill, and I believe you can see a bit of the tan on it. Or it has a shorter bill obviously a shorter bill than the great egret.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So now we're going to go on to another bird, and I'm going to ask TJ to tell us what you see. Oh, That didn't
Whoop.
do what I thought it was going to do. There we go.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Unfortunately,
Definitely,
there's a title, so you know, we've sort of,
yeah.
cheating.
Has a long bill, very similar to the egret in size. Has the head is black and white stripes, black, kind of like black above the eye, white below the eye. Has sort of a kind of a messy bit of feathers around the front and on the backs of the wings. Maybe that's a special plumage thing for the breeding. Has a dark body underneath, and it looks like it has gray on the backside.
Let's show the next picture. I think we get more looks at that.
Yeah, then definitely on the lower part of the neck, you still have that big
Fluffy
kind of
stuff.
a fluffy plumage. And then you can see that, I guess, looks like the tops, the very tips of the shoulder, perhaps dark. And then underneath the wing, it's also dark black. And there looks to be sort of like a little crest on the back of the head that is down in these pictures. And
I like that. I like that term, fluffy stuff. That's a good technical term.
Yeah, it is. It is. And the again, it's hard from just one picture to get a good idea because it's hard to tell what wings are folded over what stuff. So can you enlighten us on the I'm going to take your image off so you can see it better because I know you're on a small screen. So on the bird on the left, and you can easily see what TJ was talking about. The black is above the eye line and white below the line. But there's things that hang off the back end. What are those?
Those are more fluffy stuff, breeding plumage.
Okay.
You can see the bird on the right does not have that stuff, or does. On my screen, I can't quite tell. The bird on the right is not quite as distinctly colored as the one on the left. That's because the one on the right is an immature bird.
Ah, I think I'm seeing some reddish on the head. Is that possible, or is that just an artifact of the photo?
I think is kind of a reddish tint.
Mm-hmm.
There's also, you can see a bit of chestnut color on the corner of the wing.
Mm-hmm.
And this great blue heron is hidden by the wing right now, but the upper part of the leg is also a chestnut color.
Okay.
There is a very similar bird in Japan and Europe, probably across most of the old world, that's very similar to this, but has a gray leg instead of the chestnut leg.
Uh-huh.
And that's called a gray heron.
Okay. And we're going to skip on down to the number 41, please. Okay, now this is an astonishing bird, and I will try and describe it. It has the bill is very reminiscent of the egrets that we saw. It looks like, well, I know it's small because I've seen it in person, but it looks like doesn't have a long neck because on the right it's all hunkered down and it looks like it's a very short-necked bird. But on the left, it looks like, well, maybe it's not quite so short-necked. It's beautiful rust-colored on the front with these white stripes. The head is a bright green, dark green. And then the back is green with flecks of other colors in it. And I think the belly's white. Let's see I think we have another picture of this one. Let's try that. Yes. And this shows it with the two on the left, it's all hunkered down. And the one on the right shows you, yes, it does have a longer neck. So Doug, what can you tell us about these? Are these male and female differences, or are they adult and juvenile differences, or what's the coloration differences?
The one on the lower left is a juvenile bird. And you can see that there's some lighter colored tips on most of the feathers on the back and on the wings. It also probably has a little bit of fluff on the top of the head, juvenile down.
Mm-hmm.
The picture on the right, that neck is not fully extended.
Hmm.
The neck goes a lot longer than that.
Okay. And is the yellow bird legs on the right a difference of location? Because I see the one on the upper left is more like tan, and I didn't notice any color on the previous ones.
I suspect that it could be location. It also could just be the color balance of the photograph.
And what is this bird?
This is a green heron, formerly called green-backed heron. It
Okay.
is just like the egrets. It is in the heron family. It's much smaller than even the snowy egret or the cattle egret.
Mm-hmm.
And they're known to use tools to, I should say, lures to attract fish. They might find a piece of bread or a stick or something, toss it in the water to lure a fish closer, and then catch the fish.
Oh, and do all herons and egrets do that?
Not to my knowledge. I've only seen the green heron do it. I've also seen the green heron observing as mallards feed along the shoreline. The mallards will stir up little fish ahead of them, and the green heron will stay a step or two ahead of the mallard to catch the fish.
Wow, that is so cool.
What's the range? Where in the country or the world does this particular bird hang out?
Um, in North America, I think they're pretty much all over the lower 48. I don't think they go into Canada very far. I have seen them in Illinois and here in California, and some authorities elsewhere in the world believe it's conspecific with the striated heron in Europe.
Okay. Are they things are herons in general, are they increasing in area, decreasing area? What?
As far as I know, their populations are stable. Um, the great blue heron is probably the most northerly of the herons. I think they've even been seen in southeast Alaska. Um, but they're primarily warm weather birds.
Okay.
So
Um, let's look at one more bird here. And let me get that one spotlighted for us. And this one, it says night heron, but I don't know if it's really a heron or if it's a whole different thing. What's up about that?
this is a heron, and it is most active at night, but these two photos were actually made during daytime in Hawaii.
Mhm.
Um, we're not really sure how they got to Hawaii, but they're quite common there now.
Mhm.
The one on the left is a juvenile bird, and the one on the right is an adult.
And they don't have long necks?
The neck isn't quite as long as some of the other egrets or herons.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was just hunkered down like y'all see them.
Yes, they are.
Okay. All right. So let's
I got a question about these the herons and the egrets. Do they have male and female plumage like a lot of the smaller the songbirds and the finches and things, or are they kind
No,
of all the same?
they're all the same as far as I know, at least the ones I'm familiar with. Um, some of the ones in Florida have several different color forms. For example, the reddish egret is either reddish or white. The little blue heron, immature birds are white before they turn dark as adults. But as far as I know, there's no gender specific differences.
but you did say there were um, age specific differences.
They certainly are.
Mhm. So when we talk about a winter versus summer, it really is breeding like summer and non-breeding like winter. Is that right?
Yes.
I want to know how these birds change colors. I mean, how do they do it? It's a bright yellow bird and then it's a dull yellow bird. How do you change colors like that?
They change their clothes.
What?
they, they drop the old feathers and grow new ones.
F-
They,
All at once, you got a naked bird?
Well, you don't have it all at once. No, it's gradually. And you'll notice on some of the darker colored birds, the older feathers are kind of faded. The new ones are darker black. Um, so you see patches of dark and patches of light on the birds that's molting.
Mhm. Okay. Well, let's see. Glen, would you show us number 46, please? And let's get that up there. Now this is our how shall I say that?
Mascot?
Yeah,
Good enough.
our mascot, our logo. This is the image that is on all of the stuff and the Burning with Lois.global website and on our YouTube and our videos, and it's his. It's TJ's picture. I
Yes,
really,
I
really
recognize his
like that.
picture.
Yes, I would imagine that you would. And what can you tell us about where you took that picture?
It was near a small pond. So there was some dried grass. It's actually kind of hanging on to like a piece of dried grass or reed or a cattail kind of thing. Um, and then, of course, the bird is all black, except for on the shoulders, there's a bit of color, sort of an orange, and then it sort of fades off into a sort of more pale yellow. So I just happen to know this is probably later in the season. Uh, that's why the coloration is a little bit faded on this particular bird.
All right. We do have pictures of other birds. Could we see the next one, please? And this is the male red-winged blackbird. And I think I'm going to put that one up big just so we have something to talk about. Now, Doug, on the left, that bird looks like it has a gray bill instead of a black one. Is it just lighting, or do they have different colors in different places, or what?
I suspect it's just lighting.
Okay. And then the patch of red on the wing, what I would call an epaulet, it doesn't have very much below it. There's a tiny little bit of yellow left over there. Is that just because it's worn off?
I think that's because it's a West Coast bird.
Okay.
There's some regional differences in plumage.
Okay. And then the bird on the right is singing. That's very nice. But they're pretty bland looking. It's like you can't see that red very well. But they use it for attracting mates. What do they do? Do you want to try and describe that, or you want me to try and describe that?
Well, I'll try. They they spread their wings and show off those red epaulets, and they become quite prominent. And I guess just call it a fancy display.
And they sing.
They
And the
certainly
bird
do.
that they're singing for is the next picture, which is
Hard to say it's the same species, but it certainly is.
yeah. So
It's
this
very
is
confusing.
the
Yes,
female, right?
yes. It can be very confusing for people who don't realize that they have such different plumages.
When I first saw it, I thought it was a sparrow, a big sparrow.
Right.
I thought it was a sparrow. Okay, let's look at the next one. I put in a bunch of just birds that are, mostly black. So this one I will describe. Let me get in there and describe it. The bird is shiny black. It is got a yellow eye, dark feet, dark bill. And the head doesn't appear to be very iridescent. It's just plain black. But that's what it looks like. And there's no way to tell size from the picture, but I do know that it's about the size of a red-winged blackbird. So, Doug, what we got here?
We have a brewer's blackbird. And this is a Western bird. Um, other parts of the country will have the rusty blackbird, which has a white eye instead of the yellow eye. And this is a male. The females are much duller colored.
like that.
Yep, like that.
And I know that this is a pair because they were hanging out together. I mean, otherwise, how would you know? So we have another bird in the area that I think is very interesting. Can we see that one? Here's the male and the female, I think, of
Yeah,
this one.
the great-tailed grackle.
Mhm.
Yeah, the male is in the upper right, the female the lower left. Again, you can see, just as with the brewer's blackbird, the male is this shiny, iridescent black, and the female is a duller colored, more brownish.
Mhm. And we have those here. I've also seen them in Texas, but there's another one called a boat-tailed grackle. It looks very similar. That's back east.
I'm not very familiar with that one. I
Mhm.
believe it has a bigger tail, or the tail is more inverted, perhaps. Whereas most birds would have the tail that fans from center to edges downward, and the boat tail, I think, is reversed.
Hmm. Okay, so let's see what else we've got in here. Oh, this let's do the next one. The next one. So let me get in there. So Doug was talking about the red-winged blackbird, and they fluff up their epaulets and they go, "I'm so great, I'm so wonderful," and there's blackbird wings spread out, bright red, and they're singing to court the ladies. Well, this one is not got red epaulets, but instead it has a bright yellow head. And so as you can see, let me get out of the way here so you can see that better. The one in the upper right is, I would call a traditional courting pose. The wings, instead of being up like the red-winged blackbird, they're hanging down or draped back, and the head's thrown up, and all that bright yellow is on display. And let's see the next slide. And there in the reeds is the lady that they're trying to serenade. Okay, this is a yellow-headed blackbird. Let's see the next picture. And I know this one really well because when they display like that and they fluff up their, whoops, I didn't. If I'm going to gesticulate, I had better be there so you can see me gesticulate. Yeah. So they fluff up their bright yellow feathers here, and you can see the black skin underneath. And that's where, when you see a picture of it and there's black lines on there, that's not feathers. That's just seeing the black skin underneath. And that picture right there, I drew that one. I painted that picture. I'm so proud of myself. Okay. Anyway, is there anything that you would like to tell us about the yellow-headed blackbird, Doug?
Well, it's a marsh bird primarily, like the red-winged blackbird, and we do have them here in the Central Valley in the winter. For example, at the Yolo Bypass Wildlife Area. We also have them in the mountains in the summer, some of the mountain marshes, such as in Sierra Valley. And I believe they're also quite widespread in the upper Midwest and in the Rocky Mountains.
Mhm. Okay, so let's look at the next picture. I really like this one. Those are blackbirds. And that a lot of times that's what you see, is you just see a whole bunch of blackbirds. So there wouldn't be any way to, from this picture, decide who they are or what they are, unless you got like one bird isolated that had a really long tail and you go, oh, well, there's a, grackle or something. But if you look at it and then you look at the next picture, I I I looked at pictures and I saw this one and I went, oh, that's cool. Because if you look at the top arrow, you've got a yellow-headed blackbird. They have those bright white, when they fly, you see this bright white on the side. So that's a yellow-headed blackbird. Then the next arrow down is pointing at a red-winged blackbird, and it's got that almost orangey red. I mean, it's a very bright red and a yellow part around it. But then look at that third picture. It's a little hard to see. Let me get out of the way so you can see it better. It is, the red is darker. It's a different color red, and it doesn't have a yellow band. It's got white around it. And that, Doug Herr, what is that bird? Name that bird.
That is a tricolored blackbird.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
that is something we really like to see because they are declining. Their habitat is shrinking, and we want to protect them.
Okay. All right. So let's.
That's a really nice comparison picture.
Yeah, I was so excited when I saw that, and then I blew up that portion of the picture. That's not from the picture before. It was a different thing. So let's talk about what we've been doing here. I'm going to. Oh, how do I do that? I guess I have to do it one at a time. I'm trying to remove all the spotlights and get us back to. All right. So, Glenn, if you could put up a black screen, please. All right. This is working. All right. How'd we do? We had a good time.
Yeah.
I think it worked.
I think it worked. Yeah. Yeah. We are not finished with the hour, but is this a good place to stop, or do you want to do a few more? I got some good ones coming up.
I'm good for a few more.
All right.
Sure.
Hit us, Glenn. All right, TJ, you get to be up and you get to describe what you're seeing.
Well, I see the bird on the left has a sort of red on the top of the head, red on the breast and underneath the chin. The feathers kind of a mottled brown and tan. A shorter, stouter bill, black eye. The legs are kind of a nondescript brown colored. And the one on the right, very just mottled brown and tan, kind of all over, leads me to suspect perhaps a male and a female pairing here, but I don't know for sure.
Very good. Very good. All right. Doug, you want to jump in here? I do have more pictures.
Well,
So,
TJ is spot on. It's a male and female here. He described some very good field marks for these birds. This is a house finch, very common bird in the area. There are some similar birds that we don't see quite as often here in California, such as the purple finch, where the male has a much rosy color all over, and the female has a more distinct markings on its head. But some
so
people,
we don't have any of those to compare to. So we'll just, yeah. Let's
okay,
show the next picture. There you go. There's all your males. Tell us about
yeah.
those.
Well, the brighter males are the spring ones. You see the ones with a duller red color; those are off peak season, so they're not in breeding plumage.
Really?
Yeah,
I always thought it was just color variation because I see them at the same time in the same. Oh, well, all right.
yeah. Some of them molt at different times. It also has to do with diet as well.
Mm-hmm. And some of them in our yard are almost orange. We don't have a picture,
Yeah,
but yeah.
yeah.
Let's see the next picture. And there we got the females.
Yep. Now, one thing that distinguishes these house finches from the purple finches is the extent of the striping on the sides. You can see some stripes on the sides of these females. The males also have that, and the purple finch has much less of that.
Okay. And so let's see. I am done with finches now. Do you want to talk about the bill shape at all? Because these are really chunky. They're like a, a triangle that's very wide at the base.
These are very strong bills. They're made for cracking seeds open.
And is
And
this typical of all finches?
this is a very typical finch-shaped bill.
Mm-hmm. And
Some of
those,
the sparrows have a slightly longer seed cracking bill, but these stubby conical ones are the finches.
okay. And these are not particularly large birds. They're about the sparrow size, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, now let's get into my favorite bird. Put them up, Glen. I guess I'll do the honors. I see a bird that is gray on the back. It is sky blue wings and tail, at least from the backside. And well, the hair, the, the face looks very wet, so I'm not sure if that's what it's supposed to look like or not. Let's see the next picture. Aha, here we go. Now we can see on the front that it's got a creamy white front, and it's got white underneath the uh, right under the chin here, from the bill all the way down. And it looks almost like it's hanging over a blue necklace, but I can't quite tell. Oh, there's that distinctive white eye line just above the eye, black eye. I think the bill is black and it's just glistening in the sunshine. I'm not really sure. And there's like almost a mask on the edge of the face there. Let's see, what else can I see? Um, That's okay. Go on to the next one. We'll look at that one now. Ah, when I can get up close, I can see those little pin feathers all the way around the eye. That's very interesting. And it looks almost like there's a hook over the beak. So, Doug, let's get you to weigh in here. Is that a hook on that beak or is it not?
It's a little bit of a hook. These California scrub jays are omnivores. They like peanuts, they like mice, they like lizards, they like Cheetos. Cheetahs aren't that good for them, though. They also like the safflower seed I put out for the finches.
They also like eggs of other birds in the spring.
Yes, that's correct, and baby birds as well.
Yeah. So this would be your basic omnivore. All
Yeah.
right, let's see another picture on those. One of the things that the scrub jay is noted for is planting acorns, and they'll find an acorn and they'll go put it in your yard someplace.
Which could explain
usually
a lot of the seedlings in my yard.
Yes, it does, because they find someplace soft enough that they can poke it in, and frequently that's a planter box. But they do come back for and take them, or other birds come and take them. I can't be 100% sure, but
Or they forget about them and they grow.
that's true too. That's true too. So is the color on this bird? Let me spotlight this one again. Is the color on that bird something that is distinctive for California, or is it, are all scrub jays this color?
Well, this is the California scrub jay, which is found as far north as sometimes British Columbia, but it's a West Coast bird. There are some similar species, also called scrub jays, but in the Southwest, there's a Woodhouse's scrub jay, which has a much less distinct necklace around the neck. There's also a Mexican jay. I think it was formerly called a gray-breasted jay, which is I've seen in southern Texas. And in Florida, there's a Florida scrub jay.
All right. And for those of you who listen to this show or watch the Birding with Lois show, I had a guest on named Joseph Moreland, and he was talking about how names happen and things get lumped and things get split and all that sort of stuff. So we had a good discussion about jays on that. I think we have time only for two more birds. So
Lois, can I mention one thing about that scrub jay? That
Yes.
I noticed the tail was really long, almost as long as the entire body on that bird. And that
Mhm.
was a little different than a lot of the other, like the finches and stuff, had kind of a short, stubby tail. Really long tail on this particular bird.
Mhm. Yeah.
Good observation.
Yeah. Good. Good.
I suspect that these long-tailed birds use that tail for maneuvering in dense brush or forested environments.
And these definitely are birds that like trees. Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, let's do the next picture. Oh, we skipped one. Yes, this is my picture. This is a scrub jay outside my window taking a bath, all messed up. Yeah. But, oh well, you can't have attitude all the time. The next species is a related bird, and I think I get to describe this one. All right. So it's on a fence post. I have a relative size, so that's a big bird. It's definitely bigger than a jay. And the tail is super long. Wow. So I see white in front on the belly. I see, I'm not sure if there's shadows or if there really are black leggings on the tops of those legs. I can't quite tell. The head is black, the breast is black. The lines are very distinctive, very sharp edge, none of this fading from one to another. The bill is yellow, and then below the black eye, there's a little bit of yellow. And since I've seen this bird before, I know that sometimes there's more yellow and sometimes there's less. And then the wings and tail, they look black, but they're sort of reflecting something. So you want to show me the next picture, please? There we go. Again, okay, so that's definitely a black and white bird, black feet, yellow bill. All right, Glen, you take over. I do have pictures of them flying, and I have pictures of the iridescence. So, nope, not yet. All right, go ahead. You're up, Doug.
Oh, this is a magpie. There are magpies found throughout the world, but this one is distinctively Californian. This is the yellow-billed magpie, found only in central and northern California. There is another magpie found in most of the rest of the country, or I should say most of the rest of the continent, called a black-billed magpie, which obviously has a black bill. These yellow-billed magpies are a little bit smaller than the black-billed magpie. They flock quite a bit, found often in riparian habitat. And I think it's a very cool bird.
Next slide. Now you can see them flying.
And you see all that white in the wing that you don't see when the wing is folded.
Are the males and females the same?
Yes, they are.
Okay, and then next slide, and tell us about this iridescence.
Well, I believe it's part of the structure of the feather. It's I think it's a refracting the light differently. It's not quite the same as a pigment, where the pigment is split, radiates a certain color or absorbs colors. This one amplifies and reflects the color,
Mhm.
and
So
you see it only at certain.
sometimes, Mhm.
You only see it at certain angles.
And sometimes it looks almost like the green, blue, purple that you might catch in an oil slick,
Yeah,
which is also reflecting things.
yeah.
Okay, now I'm gonna get back in here and ask for the next bird. Caw, caw, caw. I've heard that one a lot. So this is an odd silhouette for this bird, but it is, I mean, that's how you're going to see it. You're going to see it with its mouth open, yelling at somebody. And it's all black and shiny and black bill and black feet and black eyes and black feathers. And it's all black. Let's see another one. Next slide. And there we have a couple of pictures of them. So, Doug, what can you tell us about this bird?
caw, caw, caw. This is the American crow. It's also a member of the jay family, as the magpies and ravens are. It's a larger bird, very common, very widespread, very adaptable. They can live in a wide variety of habitats, eat just about anything like the jays do.
Okay. And on the bill, so I'm going to show a picture of a different bird in a moment. So on the bill, notice the size of the bill related to the size of the head. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's kind of like a bill with a bird attached to it. Or
This one is a bird with a bill attached to it. Next picture. Now that is a bill with a bird attached to it.
okay, much larger bill in
Mhm,
proportion to the body, and that's a common raven.
mhm.
And you can see a little bit in this particular photo that there's one thing you can see in the bird flying overhead. The common raven's tail is a little bit more wedge shaped than the crow's tail is. The tail of the crow is more of a fan, whereas the raven's tail is longer in the center.
Spade shaped, I've heard. That sounds like
Okay,
a good description.
sure.
Yeah. All right. And we have fade to black in that picture, and we are happy that everybody got to see this, and I had a good time doing it. I hope you all had a good time doing it. And so let's get those final credits up, and we'll end the show in just a minute. And we have the crew, we have where to go to see the rest of the websites, and bye bye, everybody.